someone who lives in a wildfire area, this is what keeps me up at night, knowing whether I'm going to be able to get insurance or not. And knowing that the Department of Insurance is working really hard for people to get insurance is really good. So this is the information that you guys need to relay back over to your clients, your community, because this is the valuable stuff that, in this industry, it's very competitive, right? There's so many agents out there. And how do you distinct yourself from the competition is being able to give value. So this is that value that you guys are able to give. And that's one of the cool things about AREAA as an organization and the things that we bring to the table. So you guys can learn, apply that, bring it back to your business, and hopefully help you guys flourish. Next up, we have a hazardous specialist panel that we're going to come up here, and we have enough seats for everybody. If we have the representative from AirTech, First American, Serve Pro, and Cut and Dry. Are we all here? I hope so. Ryan, more useful stuff. Okay, we're in the coffee. Okay. Yes, please. While they make their way up and have a seat, Mark, we need one more mic that was here that is not here anymore. And while everybody is getting settled up in here, I know there's a lot of information that's going on right now. If you guys didn't have the time to write it down, we have this recorded. We are live right now. So we will post this on YouTube. You guys will be able to go back, watch it. So you guys don't have to forget anything. On top of that, a lot of the speakers that did come today, they do have packets that they're going to leave behind. So you guys should be able to have all those resources that they had discussed. So we got you guys covered on every base. Mark, are we ready?
Just see it. They probably want to.
They can use that. I will just speak louder.
Yeah, they're going to need.
If you guys don't mind out there. I do need my questions that somebody is supposed to give to you.
They talk about these.
Yeah. If you guys haven't, that'd be great. But I'm sure you guys have been very busy.
Very much true.
Since all this has happened. So thank you for coming and giving a breath of knowledge to us.
Because so
how we could.
And that's all. Yeah, you can sit there. Or actually, you should stay at the book.
Okay.
It's good like that. If it locks out on this, let me know.
Okay. All right. Well, we got a couple of questions. Or do you guys want to maybe just introduce yourself first so they know who you guys are, what you guys do?
Yeah. I think that was the first question.
There we go.
So my name's Eric Stansel. I am the sales manager for Cut and Dry Restoration. I've been in the restoration business since I started with the organization about 14 years ago. I started at the bottom level, worked my way up, project management, estimating, done a lot of work with adjusters and insurance companies and insurance agents. And I'm now the sales manager at the company. Yep.
I got questions.
Oh, you got them? Oh, wait. Could you use it?
Give it back. If we use it,
it's probably giving me. Just yell it. All right. Well, my name is Anthony Lucero. I'm with AirTech Environmental. I'm the account manager for both LA and Ventura counties. I've been in the restoration industry for over 15 years, over 12 years experience as a restoration contractor, rebuilding homes for those that lost their homes in fires, both devastating fires and just single home fires. So navigating the project and getting completely through, dealing with the insurance carriers, and now working at AirTech doing environmental testing for restoration projects, whether it be water loss, fire, soot, smoke, and ash, or any type of bacterial testing that would need to be done.
Hi, everyone. My name is Joel Flores, and I'm with Cut and Dry Restoration. I'm the client relations representative for Los Angeles County. My background, I've got over 10 years of experience in the insurance industry, as well as logistics. And I've been with Cut and Dry a little over a year now. But my primary emphasis is to kind of focus a little bit on assisting consumers with, ensuring that they have a full understanding of, what are some of the resources that they can utilize as far as to, try to expedite, the entire team process.
All right. Last but not least, Brandon Sobransky. I work for First American Natural Hazard Disclosures. This is definitely a hot topic for us. No pun intended. But this is, so I'm on the board of GLA, but my day job is obviously to help people to find out if they live in the fire zones. And we really say that's the first step, to know if you are in the zone. And then also the other thing with the NHD that a lot of people, miss out on is the floods and the information that comes after, like we've seen in the last week, that it's not only the devastation from the fires, but it's the other effects as well. And at First American, we provide this information, and we like to say the first stop to find out if you're in the zone.
Well, those of you who know me, I'm a runner. Did you see my sweater on here? Like, seriously. Okay, I am so glad to be here, and thank you for all of you for attending today. And I want to thank our panelists for taking time out to help us with what has been going on in our backyard, Altamira. And of course, those of you who may have people in the Pacific Palisades. So my first question is to Eric. What are the first steps a homeowner should take in remedying any damages that may occur within their homes?
So the first step that you have, anytime you have any kind of type of damage, whether it's a total loss or maybe it's just setting smoke, or maybe you have just, some water damage randomly, the first thing to do is the mitigation process. And so the way to start that is to get a company out, a licensed contractor, to do an inspection and kind of advise on what needs to be done. Some projects are not as obvious as others as far as whether or not a claim needs to be filed. So that's kind of the first step, is just making sure that it's something that you actually want to file a claim on, especially nowadays with the insurance industry being so sensitive. And then from there, you file a claim. And once again, you want to make sure you have a licensed, CSLB licensed contractor to help you through that process. And that's the beginning. Do you guys have anything on that? I'll add it. Please, Joel. Well, I mean, we all know, how the insurance industry has been, over this past several years. So it's very important also, as Eric mentioned, to get a company out there to, do an inspection, a free inspection, to assess the damages. But primarily, it's important to kind of not necessarily file the claim right away until you actually get that inspection completed and the damages are assessed, because, obviously it's very challenging to find insurance these days. Over the past several years, it's been very difficult. And, it can prevent, because if you contact your insurance company and file a claim right away, it's automatically going to deem a claim onto the property, right? And so to maybe minimize that, maybe your deductibles have increased over the past couple of years as well to lower the premiums, because we've seen the spike in premiums go up. So first and foremost, before just, quickly filing the claim, get your property inspected first. And then, that a company like ours, Country Dry Restoration, we can definitely assist with the claims process if that does happen to be the route that's taken out. Right? Of course, this. And
Here. Let's switch a little bit. We'll go over to Brandon. So what are the new laws affecting natural hazard disclosures?
So the new things that are really affecting is obviously the mapping. So this is something that just came out recently, is that they've expanded the local responsibility area. And there's really two zones that you really need to focus on if you're looking at an NHD, and that's who's state responsibility and local. So the state is obviously CAL FIRE and FEMA that are providing mapping, but theirs not as detailed as like the local cities or the county. And so they've expanded the local responsibility area for a high severity fire zone. They already had very high.
and there's already state responsibility high and very high. So really and truly what that means is that the maps have expanded, but the other piece of that a lot of people kind of forget is not just if you're close to those zones, but ember zones can go up to 2 miles. And so that's the other thing is if you're close to those zones, you really got to also think about and consider if you're in those zones, how it's going to affect you.
And I'll add a little story to that. Actually, I sold a piece of property in my mother-in-law's house in the La Crescenta area, which is right up the county, not the city. And the realtor looked it up, and per the state map, indicated that the property was not in the high fire severity area. And knowing natural hazard, I beg to differ. The property was in a high fire severity area. So those local ordinances are really crucial to get that information. So, Eric, what are the first steps a homeowner should take in? Oh, no, that's not it. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
What is the EPA Environmental Protection Agency and the SCAQMD, which stands for South Coast Air Quality and Management, involved in their posted procedure moving forward? And this is for Anthony.
All right, so everybody's heard tons of information. I think I'm just realizing I make a statement. I'll stand up over here. So everybody's hearing about the EPA going through these neighborhoods, both Altadena, Palisades, Malibu, Brentwood, Pasadena, and some of La Crescenta, to clear out some of the, contaminants that they had found within the properties, whether it be gas cans or propane tanks, so on and so forth. They're also doing testing throughout the areas for VOCs and other things, and clearing those areas so that people try to do cleanups within their homes, and then also be able to do debris pile cleanups. And that's phase one of the process. We heard a little bit about it earlier, and then you do have to have clearance in order to be able to move forward with those things from the EPA. And they will post a sign literally at your driveway in your front yard and let you know whether or not you can begin the secondary process. The only thing that the EPA is not testing for is both asbestos and lead. Those are two concerns that substantial nature because of the fact that AQMD regulates both of these areas that are very highly impacted. And despite what everybody thinks, and other things that were said by both the county supervisor and Gavin Newsom, our governor, is that they are not lifting the regulations for testing asbestos and lead. It must be tested for, and you must follow the guidelines for Rule 1403, both by AQMD, and Rule 1403 for Cal OSHA, which is the standard for an employee health for any of the companies that are going to be doing the work in these areas. So asbestos, as everybody may or may not know, is a carcinogen, and it's probably inside of this wall right here, probably in the glue that's holding down the carpet to this floor. In its solid state, it's 100% okay. It's a insulator, it's a binder, it works fantastic. Second that we disturb that wall, it becomes airborne, and even just putting a nail into this wall can contaminate this entire room. So it's important to have that testing done on the properties prior to doing any cleaning. Even if it's soot, smoke, and ash, we are finding that asbestos and lead have been carried up to mile and a half in the heavy winds that we did have that was blowing it all through. A lot of these homes that were built in the 1950s, 1960s, 1970s, all definitely do have asbestos-containing materials in them. And once it became airborne and flew throughout, it stuck to the soot, smoke, and ash and then made its way into these homes. So a lot of companies are going in and just doing cleanups and not testing for it. And we're going back afterwards and finding that it's still contaminated. And there is a certain procedure that has to be done. It's called the Procedure 5 Protocol for AQMD in order to clean up asbestos. Lead can be cleaned up by anybody who has an RRP license, which as long as it's not lead-based paint or actual lead-containing material, it can be cleaned up and wiped up. But then there's clearances and other things that need to be done before certificates of occupancy can be handed out by the local municipalities for people to move back into their homes. So there's lots of steps and processes that do need to be taken. And we have tested, I think current number as of yesterday was right around 640 homes and properties within both areas of the Palisades and Altadena. And of course, we got to get into Altadena a lot sooner than we did the Palisades because we had to wait in lines for hours to get passes to move up to these properties. But we are registered. We do have passes. We can make it to these properties and we can get testing done as it is needed. So, and that goes for any company. I'm just speaking for myself. Any testing company that can do it should get out, and their clients definitely should test their properties before moving forward with any other projects, because you do have to have a special abatement license in order to clean these properties up when it comes to asbestos. And that can't just go to a regular landfill. It's got to go to a landfill that's actually just a mountain in Nevada somewhere that they carry it all under. So it can't go to a regular landfill. They can't just start cleaning up their property because the beginning fines are around $57,000 for your first offense. And that's split between a contractor and one of their employees. So just be very careful as you move through the process or instruct your clients to move through the process of getting things done so they can get it better.
Do you have anything to add to that?
Just that going back to the beginning of the mitigation process, one of the first things you want to do after you get your inspection done is making sure you get it tested, right? Almost everything needs to be tested nowadays. And we're dealing with the EPA, the Air Quality Management District, local, state, federal regulations. There's a lot of stuff that you need to know, and the testing judges. They're the ones that kind of tell the restoration company how to proceed on a specific project. So they're all very unique, and it's very important that you get that testing done. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, Brandon. Second question. What is the AD thermal mod, and when it is the MHDS, these acronyms, CAR for use?
All right. So everyone knows, or realtors, most people know that this came out a few years ago, and it's a formalized process of providing the new homeowner the knowledge that they will then, if they're in a high or very high severity zone, will be responsible for making sure that their homes are hardened. So our home hardening section of this FHDS form is to tell you what you can do to make your home, like the soffits of the roof, the things that were talked about earlier on this zone, the 5-foot zone around it, and what you need to do to make the home more fire resistant. And then the second part is really the form part, where you are going through and letting that buyer know, this is the fire department that's going to be responsible for that yearly inspection. The other part is who is responsible, right? Are you giving, as the seller, responsibility to the buyer, or are you as the seller going to get that compliance? And there's a compliance form that either the city or CAL FIRE or the county will provide to you. And within that FHDS form, it's like a typical tax form. It is impossible to read through. So this is the thing that I always tell my clients: go to the MHD companies. We're the experts. We deal with this on a daily basis, and we'll walk your clients through each one of those questions in the process of why is this needed. Another thing is, a lot of people think condos need this. It's not always the case, because it's typically a single family home built before 2010. If it's built after 2010, the code was updated to be more fire resistant. And so it's not necessarily required. Some brokers will require that. But again, it's just the formalized process of providing the buyer with the information that they're going to be checked every year by the fire department. And if there's trees that are overhanging or bushes that are overgrown, they'll have to trim that up. If you do not, they hang a door tag on your door, and it says you need to have this trimmed or this done by a certain date. If they do not, the fire department will have a mitigator come out and trim the trees, but they'll stick you with the bill. And I know that it's typically 2, 3, 4 times as much to do that. So typically they tell you, have your own person take care of it, trim the trees. So, yep.
Great. Okay, Eric, why is it important to hire a CSLB licensed contractor to perform remediation, and how can cut and dry help being part of that process?
So regardless of the project, and I like this question a lot, and I know that, when you're talking to your clients, it doesn't really seem like something that you need to bring up because it is such common sense. If you have any project, regardless of what it is, mitigation, repair work, remodeling, if anybody in the state of California is having you sign a contract, they need a state licensed contracting certification. So it's very tempting to save money with somebody that isn't licensed, and you will save money in the beginning. But I can tell you that there are so many liabilities, and it just puts so much just liability, right, on you, on anybody that might be living in your property, whether it's tenant, property managers, owners, all these liabilities can arise. But even worse than that, if you're dealing with a claim and you're trying to rebuild a portion or the entire property, a lot of times if you're using an unlicensed contractor or somebody that's just working on your house that doesn't have a contractor license, the insurance company will want to, give out promise payment, and they want to have inspections done on the property to make sure that the property is actually being, properly built. And so a lot of times they'll, on the check as a payee, they'll put the mortgage company on there. And if the mortgage company sees that it's not a licensed contractor doing the work, they will withhold those funds and prolong that rebuilding process. And it is a nightmare to get out of. We've actually had people call us and ask us to help after they've had an unlicensed contractor come in and try to get some of that work done, and their funds are tied up in the mortgage. The mortgage wants to see that their property is being put back correctly. So that's just one of the things that, one of the many nightmares you come across when hiring somebody that's not licensed. And I know you talked about it a lot earlier. You basically answered this question for me. Okay. That was amazing. So, but yes, it's really important. And sometimes, like I said, it does come to you when you're talking to your clients. You really need to make sure that you communicate that to them and make sure they understand how important it is. Yeah.
Hey, well, one more question here for Brandon. Gentlemen, did you have anything else to add, Anthony or Joel? Okay, great. When does a fortress fire report make sense to order, and when does it not make sense to order?
So for those of you who don't know what the Fortress Fire Report is, it's now underneath on the RPA. It's included as the wildfire disclosure. This is something that is not required. So the NHD is required by law that you have to inform the new buyer that they live in a fire zone, flood zone, earthquake zone. But this Fortress Fire Report, why it was developed, it was actually developed with CAR and the Department of Insurance to provide information to the homeowners who live in these high fire zones. And it provides a risk score to the property. And they use satellite imagery, and they're also starting to include inspections of the properties and what you can do to mitigate your fire risks. So they talked about the 5-foot zone around the house. It's my least favorite thing. I really like plants. They're really telling you, you can't have shrubs and trees close to the house. You have to cut that stuff away 5 feet. We also know that a lot of the zones will go into neighbors' yards. So it's a 30-foot zone. These zones don't always abide by how the city looks. And so this is the thing that you really need to know, is that the Fortress Fire Report is there to help and assist to bridge some sort of gap with insurance, but the insurance companies are the ones who really determine if they're going to insure. And so the Fortress Fire Report is usually ordered on a single family residence. It's usually the buyer wanting to know this information. And this information can be provided at any point. So even if the buyer doesn't want that, they can still, or the seller doesn't want to provide that, the buyer can still purchase that information and find that, whatever helps them to really determine what they need to do to the property. They do have a dollar amount that's included, but again, this is just a general dollar amount. In some cases, it's trimming trees, trimming bushes. And so if you have someone who already does that, provides you at a good cost, obviously you would go to that person. But again, it's called Fortress Fire. And this, again, can be purchased at any time throughout any process. So anyone can get that information.
Okay, well, I believe that will wrap up our segment. The gentleman will be here later if you want to get their contact information. And we just want to thank you for participating with this event, and we all appreciate you. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Martin. Just where to be.